everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alysha Sklar. I'm the VP of Marketing for GIS Planning, and I will introduce my guest in a moment. Delighted to have you all here. I want to welcome you all and appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. And so with that, I am thrilled to welcome my guest today, Alysha Dominico, who I've worked with personally. She is the CEO of Tangible Words, and she is really a place marketing expert. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to be able to have her here today so she can share with all of us the top 3 marketing tasks that your community can be doing better today. Alysha, how's it going?
Amazing. Welcome, everybody. Just want to say a shout out to my kids for the lovely wallpaper that they've given me.
I love that as a background. I think that's fantastic. And I also love the ability to see you, even though we're far away from each other. This really does make things easier. We're excited to hear about place marketing. And I know from experience how much expertise you have on this, and also how good you are at directing people to practical things that they can do for themselves, for their communities, locations, regions, wherever they are. So I'm going to turn this over to you and let you walk us through your presentation.
Okay. Right on. I'm going to start the slide deck and get right into it for you because I have a lot of ground that I want to cover, and I don't want us to run out of time for the Q&As at the end. There's not much that I need to tell you other than what Alysha already said. We work with HubSpot and helping groups like economic developers and tourism groups, so we all know a lot about marketing, and as Alysha already introduced us to. But what I want to do is focus on helping you guys today. So let's talk about the things that you can do, and I want to talk about used to be a productivity expert, I want to say, or I helped people with it. So that actually I bring into a lot of the marketing stuff that I do. And I want to talk you through these things that we promised you we'd cover today. So when we talked about this webinar, we said so much of marketing feels like it should be common sense, but then so much of what we do with marketing actually feels kind of senseless. And maybe you felt this way before, and that's why you're here. And I really want to dispel that and help you understand the 2 different buckets and how you can make sure all of the marketing that you're doing makes sense, and that it is something that is really going to work for you, and not feel like you're just constantly like rolling this ball up a never-ending hill and you don't really even know why you're doing these things. And that excuse of, well, we've always done it this way, is probably something that drives you nuts. And so what I want to do is give you some focus, some areas of focus, and how to plan for focus as we go through today. So let's make it make sense. The first thing that I want to do as we talk about making it make sense is how many of you, and Alysha is going to open up a poll for us here, and you can fill in this poll. Why doesn't it make sense? Why isn't marketing common sense? We all know we need to promote things, right? So fill in this poll for me. Are you currently allotting time for any of the following? Are you allotting time for planning, tracking, optimization? Because the only way that marketing actually works is still not common practice, even though we all know and accept that we need to do marketing. So fill in the poll, let us know. We can give like 20 more seconds on the poll, and then we're going to move on, because I really want to talk into how you can make time for these elements and how to make sure that it actually is going to work for you ongoing. All right, let's close that up. Alysha, what do we got? Anybody fill it in?
I'm going to give people another few seconds, because I see about almost 1/2 of people have voted, so maybe they need another few minutes. We want to hear from you. I know certainly this is a big challenge, is to think about time, and so we're really interested to hear how this actually works for you on your side. So you can click on one of those. I guess the question is that I have set this up so you can pick one. So okay. Let's see what happens, what people spend most of their are most likely to allot time for.
Well, and that's totally fair. Here, let me give you some insight. We'll cut ahead as they're still filling it in, and then we can close it up. I bet you might spend a little bit of time on planning. You might spend some time or have some tools set up on tracking, but you're probably not spending a ton of time on optimization. And when we think about marketing, we think about, oh, choose your tools, and we think about this campaign, and we think about just getting that campaign out the door as being the effort and the most important thing. And that is actually pretty normal. And some of you you're spending some time, like 75% of you are spending time on planning, 25% on tracking, and I was right, 0% on optimization. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Really normal results. That was my hypothesis, and we've just confirmed it. Okay, so let's talk about how to fix that. And I'm just going to go back into, yeah, you can still see everything. All right, cool. So what we're going to cover today is how to empower your team to get more done with marketing. And that's going to allow you to start having more time to get planning done as equally as tracking, as equally as optimization. Those three things need to be built into your marketing plan. And what we're typically doing is just do the marketing, just the operations of it. And these three things absolutely need to happen. So we're going to talk about that. One of the problems that comes up, and this is the second part of what I want to cover, is that as you start talking about tracking, you're like, yeah, but do we care about those metrics? So I want to help you find meaningful metrics today. And a lot of that gap that we all experience comes around, what does that look like? What is the metric and how do we talk about it? So you need some meta language around tracking, and I'm going to give that to you today. And then there's three things that you're probably not doing yet that I'm going to teach you today as well. There are things you can implement right away. That's hence the idea of today, stuff you can turn around after this webinar and go and check out to see if you have set up. And then we'll get into the Q&A. Okay, so let's talk about empowering your team and what that looks like. Has anybody read John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters? Think about that book. If you haven't read that book, add it to your reading list. You will not regret it. But let me back up a little bit and talk to you about why you're going to want to read that book. This is the flywheel on the left that we talk about now in modern marketing, is that it's not just about attracting people, it's about engaging people, converting them, selling something, getting their name in your CRM, and then delighting them ongoing so that they give you more word of mouth referrals. Suddenly, marketing has become more than just a sort of awareness branding exercise, and it's really about having this whole conversion point set up so that you can stay connected to these people. And I think that that has created even more mess in a sense, even though we probably always knew about word of mouth marketing. Now the marketing team is responsible for so much more than just a tweet out on social media or a landing page out. Now you have to do this whole system of marketing to really keep people in a CRM, which is a customer relationship management system, if that's an acronym you're not familiar with. But that whole concept of who's coming in, who's receiving our newsletter, how are we engaging with them, how are we making sure that they don't forget about this, that we let them know that we keep those relationships. So all of that is really, really important, but holy cow, how can you possibly prioritize amongst all of these demands? Well, there's some quick wins you can have, and there's some longer term wins that you can have. And the reason why I brought up Measure What Matters by John Doerr is he talks about objectives and key results. And objectives and key results is a management framework that I think all organizations need to be following in their own way and making their own. And John Doerr's book will really give you the sort of framework for learning about that and implementing it in your organization. But OKRs really do help you empower your team. And that's the short answer. But let's look at why this helps. So we totally get that productivity challenge is a real struggle everyone is facing, hence what we saw in our poll this afternoon. So the first thing you're going to want to do is really establish your organization's North Star. And the economic development groups and tourism groups that I work with, sometimes they kind of know what that is, but when you're working particularly in an Ontario setting, we have a lot of groups who are all funded by the government, all working together, and you have to really differentiate between the groups who have a similar, if not shared, mandate to you. So being able to actually have a North Star for your organization is incredibly critical, and you'll learn more about this when you read Doerr's book. Then once you know what your North Star is, you can say, okay, let's actually set some objectives and key results that we want to see. And that is incredibly empowering for your team, because if you say, we want to be known, or we want to be the doorway to business for anybody who comes into our community. Let's say that's your North Star. It probably isn't, but let's say it as an example. Then you can say, okay, well, how do we know that we're the gateway? What's the objective that we would say? Okay, well, one thing that we can say as being an objective is that we know we want to be known to every business who comes in our community. We want to have a relationship with every business that's retained, and we want to have an FDI structured set up. So you could have an objective that says, based on your North Star, we want to head in this direction. We want to end up here. We want to make sure that every business knows about us. Okay, what are the key results? Well, we need to make sure we're in, key result could be every business magazine, or that we have a whole landing page system and conversion system for every business so that we know about them and can start a relationship with them. The brilliance of the OKRs is that people can know what the expectations are, and they can become innovative to come up with campaigns that are going to work for you. And instead of you guys saying, oh, we're going to send a newsletter every month, suddenly you can get a little bit more creative and think about what are the efforts that we're actually doing that matter. Instead of being like, this monthly newsletter we've always done it, it's the only thing that we do for marketing, like a lot of communities are facing right now. You can say, actually, let's reevaluate that newsletter and see if it's actually helping us get to our North Star. So these are the kinds of conversations you can have. And the third thing that I'd say in terms of really helping you with your productivity is to build out the campaign calendar that you should have based around what you need to do around your North Star. So that campaign calendar, we have Small Business Week in Ontario coming up. If you're one of those organizations that work with small business in Ontario, using that example again, you'd be like, that's a campaign that we know we always have the third week of October. We always want to have a campaign for that. And then you can put in other campaigns that need to be there, like Economic Development Week or Rock MFG Day. These are all events that you might be celebrating in your economic development organization. And so put them into your calendar if they help you with your North Star. If you don't put it in the calendar, it's not going to happen. And we try to get everybody into the mentality that you should be planning your campaigns for 3 months in advance. Okay, and putting it into the calendar 3 months in advance, not this week for next week. Just a final note on that calendar. Okay, so we're going to switch over now because we still have a lot to deliver here today. I know your heads may be reeling with objectives and key results, but don't worry, you're going to get that book out of the library or off of Amazon or your local bookstore, and you're going to read it. And you can also, I'm going to give you a chance to speak with me for 15 minutes and talk about your organization. I'll happily give of my time to go over this stuff more slowly with people, and we're also going to have the Q&A to talk more about those concepts. All right, meaningful metrics. How do you decide what you care about now that you've empowered your team? So when you're looking again across this whole flywheel of all of the things that marketing is supposed to be able to do, attract people, convert them, get them to word of mouth refer for you, how do you measure that? All right. Let's do some meta language, and this is a heavy slide, but the way I want to talk about this is that there's basically 5 levers for growth, and 3 of those levers belong to marketing, and the other 2 don't. But it's really important when you're talking about meaningful metrics and the things that you want to measure to really understand that there's these 5 levers for growth, because what ends up happening is that you get a lot of customers or groups who say, oh, we only care about closed won and net new revenue or how many jobs came into the community. And guess what? That's not actually a marketing stick that you can push on. That's not a lever of marketing. That's a result, and perhaps marketing can support that, but that really does come down to sales. That's, marketing can't close deals. Marketing can never close deals. And I always try to really hit that home with people because it's a bit of an aha moment. Marketing also can't retain your customers all on your own. That's down to your customer success team. So these growth levers of 4 and 5 are the tangible ones that everybody actually always understands and says that they want. But we have to understand how marketing supports those elements. It does not drive those metrics. So when you say to the marketing department, show me how many net new deals or closed won deals you've counted for me, it's really challenging for marketing because they don't own that whole thing. They'll definitely be an influencer, but they don't own sales and they don't own customer success. They support. So I'm really hammering that home, I hope, because I think people mix up the meta language around how we talk about growth. I think people kind of forget that how you'll actually count the marketing activities and how marketing influences these things that everyone cares about is going to be actually come down to 3 other growth levers. So marketing can do awareness. Okay, so a lot of people will talk about we need to get, increase our brand. We need people to know about us. Okay, marketing can totally do that. But how do we measure it? What's the metric set around that? Comes down to traffic or page duration. Gets really specific in a digital world as to how you measure that. We need lead generation. We need people to actually that we can follow up with. Okay, marketing can totally own that. Marketing is going to do that, but the way that they're going to do that is through form fills and getting net new contacts into your CRM. So that's how you can start to put metrics that are meaningful towards the activities that you actually care about. And then you'll say, oh, we need to nurture all the people in our existing CRM. Marketing can definitely support with that too. That's where your newsletter comes in that you've been probably sending every month or every quarter for the last few years. But it's just one stick on the growth lever of when you're actually trying to get metrics that you care about so that you can set OKRs around them and pursue them. Let's talk about this a little bit more. So your takeaways for this is that if you're going to say marketing's in charge of something, okay, it's very important to differentiate between those something. That's why I think it's very important to set your North Star and have those objectives and key results that you want to see. And then you can say, okay, what are our growth levers around that we actually care about? Okay, marketing, you go take care of awareness and lead generation. Those are our priorities. Nurturing, we don't really have that big of a list right now. So let's not worry so much about putting so much effort into that thing that only goes to maybe 100 people. But let's really work on setting up a conversion system so we get these form fills and we can count how many people are in that persona who filled in that form. And let's start looking at what kind of traffic we're driving on the awareness piece. How many people are coming to our page and bouncing off? How many page visits are we getting? Okay, and then if nurturing is important to you, let's say you have a list of 5,000 subscribers who are opening up your newsletter every month and they're all in the correct persona, then you can say, yeah, we really need to pay attention to the emails that we're sending. Maybe we need to do a better job with segmentation across our different personas. Maybe we need to do more retargeting to that list when we're running our ad campaigns. Instead of just sending it out to everybody, we can really focus on those people and the fact that we know who they are and tailor fit those messages towards them. So let's use an example of that. If you are trying to be the gateway for all things business in your community, and you have a list of 1,000 businesses who are already engaging with you in your community, you can have a different message to those businesses on that list in your CRM when they see that ad. They see something about retention and about support that you're providing for local businesses, or maybe there's incentives for them to expand their plants or their facilities, right? Those are a different ad campaign that you can be running to them to nurture that list versus those people who are brand new and not in that list that you would want them to see, like, welcome to our community and this is the kind of business support we offer kind of ad campaign. Okay, so that's a lot of information I know we're covering today, but some of this stuff might be familiar to you, and we can follow up and discuss any of these things. We're going to get talking about the 3 things you can do today, but guess what? I actually have 6 things for you. So let's go through these a little bit more slowly. Okay. One thing about Google Analytics that you're probably not using is the the conversion piece, or goals, they call it. So Google Analytics is free. You probably already have it set up when your website was built, but are you using the conversion tool, setting a goal for your pages? This is actually an incredibly powerful free thing that you have access to. It doesn't matter if you're running ad campaigns or not. You can do it just for your website pages, and I encourage you to do that. This is one thing you should do right now, is go into your Google Analytics account and see if you have set up any goals inside that account. The power of this really lies in being able to set these goals and track it. So let's say awareness is a goal that you're really striving for. You can set up a goal in Google Analytics that says we want to get, so many people to this web page, and that will prove awareness. If we can get everybody to this small business event that we're hosting 2 months from now, we will have won on our awareness goal that we set. That's a meaningful metric to us. So the Google Analytics, again, it's a totally free tool to use their conversion, their goal setup, and you can set up a conversion. Or let's say you have a video you want people to watch. That's a great way for you to track something like awareness, how many people went to that page. You can also do it if it's a form fill or a gated page. You can set up how many people ended up to the page after the gate as a way of counting how many people are engaging. So let's say you have a membership only page for retained businesses, and you want all of those people in your business community, you're going to send out a newsletter and you want to see how many people actually went to that gated page or use their membership to log in and get to that page. You can also set up a second goal to track how many of our retained businesses, or only the people who had access to this page, went to that, and you can set a goal around that. So you can have different goals inside of Google Analytics, and it's really powerful, it's totally free, and it's super underutilized by most companies. So I hope that's a really good tip for you as something that you can do today. And I'm going to put, or maybe Alysha, we can put it, I can use the chat pane, right? And I'm going to put a meeting link inside for everybody. So if I've been going quickly, or there's more stuff you want to drill down on that you don't think we're going to have time for the Q&A, I'm going to actually put in the chat pane right now my personal calendar booking link just for you guys. And I'm going to can I put it to organizers and panelists only? I
No,
don't know if they're going to
select
see
the
that.
whole audience. Select all entire audience, and that way everyone will
Yeah.
see it.
I'm going to pop it to you, Alysha, so you can help me out there because I think I screwed that up.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
So that is there for you in order. Alysha's going to put that in there as my meeting link, and we'll send it in
Actually,
the
not.
follow-up.
Sorry, I'm not seeing it. Do you mind? Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We'll send it in the follow-up notes so I don't have to interrupt
Okay.
everybody here.
Yes.
But I've got a meeting link where you can book time on my calendar to discuss all this stuff.
There we
All right.
go.
So the second thing that I want to promote to you, you've probably heard Alysha talk about a lot, and that is something that she calls strategic link placement, where if you have the GIS planning tool, for instance, you might be hosting it on your website, but did you tell all of your community partners that you also have this amazing tool and resource? Possibly not yet. Everybody's guilty of it at some point. So what I'm going to say is that's a really key thing that you can be doing right now is if you have an amazing resource or online tool that people can be using, such as you might have purchased from GIS Planning, make sure that it's not just on your website. I'm going to expand on this idea too, because it might not just be that tool that you're doing. That you're not doing enough with or not promoting enough in enough places. One of the really main principles of marketing in a digital age is repurposing. And if you create something good or you have an amazing tool, don't just make it as an ebook and expect everyone to find their way to it and that to be enough. If that's something that's really important to your organization, that white paper that you may have developed or that tool, splice it and dice it, repurpose it, put a new code on it and put it in lots of places. So here's an example with the white paper. You can take a white paper and actually break it up into multiple blog posts or multiple social posts, depending on what you have the resources to. Take out one little idea and then drive traffic to the larger thing. I think we're often not very good at this in digital marketing simply because we've run out of time to actually really launch a campaign. And there's always the next thing that somebody wants you to promote. So you're on to that next thing, just trying to get it out the door. But that's where those OKRs really come in. So you know what to prioritize, what to focus on, and what to say no to. It also allows you to see where your campaign once you've done that campaign calendar, what you have space for. So if a new opportunity comes up and it's totally in line with your objectives and key results, you can say, yes, I will have space because all of the events for the year that I know we're going to have to support are already in the calendar. And I can see we have maybe whatever it's going to take you, a 3-week window of nothing going on where you will have time to actually promote this thing that somebody's asking you to do or to be part of. So it really is a very cumulative method that I'm teaching you here. In order to repurpose and reuse those campaigns, instead of just like charging on and saying yes to everything, really think about the campaigns that are the most important to you and really plan to reuse and repurpose those where they can go. And so that includes strategic link placement, and it also includes repurposing the content of some of the other assets that you may have developed. All of this stuff has to go into a calendar. If it's not in a calendar, it won't happen, and you will feel overwhelmed, and so will your team members, and you'll often lose sight of your objectives and key results that are helping you get to your North Star. So this process of 3 things you can do today, I really hope helps you. You're going to use those Google Analytics goals pieces. You're going to think about repurposing stuff, and you're going to get all of those events that have to happen across the year that you do standardly. It might be awards in your community. It might be, like business awards are often something that a lot of EDOs are involved with or promoting afterwards. Might be tourism events that you know that you always need to promote. It might be industry specific events like Rock MFG Day. Most economic developers in North America are focused on manufacturing and trying to show that we're open for business in terms of manufacturing, and that it is a cornerstone of our economic life in North America. So trying to change that narrative and really put that information out can be really important. And knowing those industry specific events that you're going to want to be involved with to show that you're in support of their elements can be really powerful. All right, I got 3 more things for you guys that you can do today. So repurposing, I sort of tacked on with the strategic link placement, I'm sorry. But here's the other thing that I think you really need to know about. Test, measure, and improve. So we talked about setting aside time to optimize when we were at the beginning of the call. And I don't think people set enough time for that. And this goes back to, again, building on top of what I was espousing with your campaigns that you have in the can already planned, that are set in stone, but then getting on to the next thing. You really need to stop and say, we're going to need time to optimize that campaign. So let's use the Rock Manufacturing Day example again. October 20th, or Manufacturing Month, is all of October. So when you're thinking about that event and how you're going to use it, you want to have time to reuse it and repurpose it for next year, because it comes around every year. But what happens, again, we're charging along, thinking about the next thing we have to get out the door. We don't have time to stop and assess what the tracking was on that event, let alone then plan on how you can improve it. And what we try to do instead is to say, okay, these are the meaningful metrics we set up. How did we do? So time to stop and analyze. And then how can we optimize it to do better next time? And that's a process that I really encourage you to start implementing. And it really does come down to setting it aside and making it in the calendar. So as part of the campaign calendar that you're going to be planning, you really want to have time for optimization and analysis baked in there, so that you can A/B test subject lines on emails, so that you can have two different versions of a landing page show up, and to see which one works better, whether you're testing colors or headlines, or even just landing page layouts, or maybe even form questions that you're asking. So all of these things can be subtly improved to get better results on those metrics you care about. But chances are we're not putting it in the calendar to spend time optimizing those pieces. Okay, so that's a cycle to follow. And then don't try to do all the things. People will often come to me and say, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. And, I need lead generation. I need to nurture my existing list. I need to build awareness. Well, just stop. Like, you don't have to necessarily have to do all those things at once if you have a calendar for when they will get done. So having these growth levers and knowing which ones you need to pull on of these 5 that I discussed with you today is really empowering in order to schedule out when things can happen, so that you prioritize your resources and don't go, and so that you don't go really trying to do everything all at once and nothing really gets done super well. Okay.
I just want to say I love the don't do all the things, because I think that a lot of times, especially when, we work with a lot of economic development organizations that maybe have one person who's handling all the marketing and comms. And sometimes that one person is also the chief cook and bottle washer doing everything else in the organization. And it could just be paralyzing to think, oh my God, I need to be doing this and that and that. And so you just kind of throw your hands up in the air. And I can say, having worked with Alysha, that she's really good at helping you focus on, like, okay, let's start with these 1 or 2 or 3 things, whatever it is that you're doing, and let's learn to do them well. Let's learn the kind of process for them. So it takes a huge amount of weight off your shoulders if you realize you don't have to do everything all at once. Take what maybe you've already got and you're already starting to do well, and let's learn how to do it better. The calendar, I know that's something that you talk about, Alysha, and it's so useful. Look, it's the 2nd of November right now. If you took just 15 minutes of your time and started to think about what's coming in November for many of our US clients, it's Thanksgiving at the end of the month. What does that mean for that week? Usually that week is a complete wash, but maybe you want to have something related to the holiday going, just to start thinking ahead. And just plotting things down on a calendar. It can be digitally, it can be, the kind that you've got on your desk and literally write on. It really helps you start to think ahead and more creatively, so that your marketing isn't only reactive, like what actually is happening at this moment or tomorrow that I need to talk about.
Yeah, so maybe you can get your team, because like you all know where you guys are headed. You all know your North Star, and you can say to your other departments who might have events that they want you to promote throughout the year, if you can say, look, if you want me to promote Manufacturing Month next year, I need to know about it now and what you're going to want me to say. And you can have it like, it's a good time to be doing that example right now because it just happened. So you know all the ways it was successful and all the ways it maybe wasn't for your organization in the example of Manufacturing Day. So I think that's like a really good way to plan, as well as to triage what the heck just happened with that event we just ran and what can we do better next year. But we often don't have time for that debrief.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. That's really true.
The other thing, you go ahead.
No, no, you just put out so many good things out there that I just would love to reinforce to people. And I like, first of all, go on your Google Analytics. If you've never been on there, if you think someone else is taking care of this, everyone should spend time just looking at it. It's super useful. And Google is a user manual for everything. So if you don't understand what you're seeing in your Google Analytics, ask Google. What does this mean? What does bounce rate mean in my Google Analytics? And goal conversions, a lot of people worry that's intimidating and related to AdWords. Just, ask a question on Google and it will give you a background to it. I think it's a fantastic place as people start to become friendly, that allows them, without having, any advanced degrees in software engineering, to let you understand what you can do with that.
Well, and Google's even more amazing because they have their Google Academy, which you can work through their programs and their, I think it's not Google, it might be called even Google Analytics 101. They have Google Analytics for power users. You go up through the ranks of understanding Google Analytics with their free courses online. So I think that's a great resource. You're right. And it's super underutilized because I think initially it was built by engineers and it felt like a really hard tool to understand, but they're getting a lot better. Particularly in the last year, I've noticed that they've worked really hard on trying to make Google Analytics more user-friendly.
Excellent.
I also want to say, like, on the point of repurposing, I think marketing people tend to be creative people, and we're always changing product names and services, but you really don't necessarily want to do that. I think the thing that we forget about is that marketing is training the market. You're training the market on who you are and what you offer. And so while you might want to spice it up, don't overdo it and completely reinvent it. Just slightly tweak it. And that's where that optimization is really powerful. Instead of being like, oh, scrap that whole campaign, we're not doing it anymore. You can look at your tracking and say, what was good about it? Maybe we drove lots of traffic, or maybe we sent lots of emails to disseminate it. All of those are things that you can leverage to train your market and do better with that optimization time that I'm encouraging you to build into your calendar. Because I think what we often do is not leverage what we have, and we do it once and then never do it again. I'm saying do it once, do it again. Just retweak it, just tweak it based on what you've learned from it.
Excellent. I love that. I think that's fantastic. And I think one of the things that you're really good at, Alysha, when you work with people who maybe are interested in learning more or who've already started to dabble, is to help them really focus on, as you say, the North Star, like what is the goal that you want to achieve, and then breaking it down in ways that are doable, that feel doable. But as you say, there's so many things that people can start on their own today, just by setting out those and being more deliberate about it, and thoughtful and thinking ahead a few weeks instead of just a day or two. So that is amazing. I actually wanted to, again, just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, I know we've gone a little bit over time, but if you have something that you would like to share, or a question that you'd like to ask, I'm also just going to see you have your information up there on the screen, and I'm also going to share it over here. Just a reminder to folks that I'm going to be following up with an email so that people are able to see that ahead of time. There we go. Let me just bring that up on screen. There we go. So if people have any questions and they want to connect with Alysha post-webinar, you'll be able to do that. Feel free to reach out. You'll also have a link to her webpage so you can see other things that she's up to. Maybe do you have a link that we could share the slides? I could either do it as a PDF through HubSpot or put it on SlideShare so that people can see those.
Yes, yeah. If you thought I went too quickly, I mean, it's 30 minutes for powering in and out. But you guys, you can ask me anything on LinkedIn as well. I'm at Alysha Dominico. I love helping people just for free, just being like pointing you in the right direction. So go ahead, ask for help. Alysha has put in, and we'll share again into the chat pane my personal meeting link where you can book 15 minutes with me and talk through what's on your mind. Happy to do that anytime. You can send me an email at that link as well, whatever works for you guys, and we'll get these slides to you as well.
Fantastic. Alysha, it is always a pleasure to work with you, and I'm so delighted that you took some time to share this with our audience today, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.